morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Chai Time. As we all know, we are 2 weeks away from the November election. Today, we will cover the most common questions voters have, helping us understand everything from voting methods to the critical issues at stake. So joining me this morning, hi David.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I have Executive Director Nabila Mansoor and David Nguyen, Campaign Advisor from Rise AAPI. Good morning. How are y'all doing?
Good morning. We're doing great. It's the first day of early voting. We're super excited to be here.
Yes. Glad to have you all here. You made it just in time, David.
I did, thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
Good. I actually went to vote early this morning at 8 a.m.
Yay.
So, and there was actually a pretty good line at my polling location. So, very excited to see the energy that's coming. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of people will come out today this morning for sure. So, before we dive into election 2024, let's begin with a brief introduction of yourselves and your roles in the organization. Nabila, I'll start with you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us, Lynn. My name is Nabila Mansoor. I'm the Executive Director of Rise AAPI. We are a civic engagement organization, and our mission is to build power for the Asian American community here in Texas. You may not know this, or maybe you do, but Texas is the state that has the third largest Asian American community. And we know that the Asian American community kind of encompasses a lot. It encompasses everything from folks in East Asia to South Asia. How do we make sure that we are flexing our political muscle in order to make sure that we are here, we are represented, and that we are being heard? That's really the mission of our organization.
Okay. And David?
Yeah, my name is David Nguyen, and I'm the campaigns advisor for the 2024 election cycle. And so we're working with Nabila, and it's been very exciting to do a lot of voter outreach for our community, because it's so important to really educate our community in many ways, because a lot of immigrants and a lot of the old first generation tend to not know the power of our vote and our ballot. And so this work that we're doing is so important in that we make sure that, as Nabila said, flex our ability, because we have over 2 million here in Texas. Right. 1 million are eligible to vote, and the thing is, only a small percentage vote every election cycle. And so the work that we do at Rise is so important, and also others as well. And so
Wow. Yeah, I know it's only 2 weeks to election day. So, I know y'all are really working really hard, and it's been very busy for y'all. So I'm really grateful that you're here and spending this hour with us to talk about, voting and even the first time voters, like what, what do they have to do, the steps they have to take, make them be more comfortable, right? So can you tell us first, why is this election so important, and why should we vote?
Yeah. I think every election cycle we say, like, this is the most important election cycle of our lifetime. And I feel like I'm going to say that again because there is so much at stake. And so we have a couple of issues that we really prioritize at Rise and things that we care about. So for us, it's really reproductive rights, women's rights to having access to good health care, gun violence prevention, right? Making sure that our communities are safe from guns, our children are safe in their schools. Climate is really, of course, always really important. All of these issues are really important to us, and we believe that, the people we elect affect those issues. So it's really important we do our research and we make sure we're trying to get folks that will really make sure that these issues are being prioritized.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because even here on Chai Time, we have done topics on climate change. We have done topics on gun violence. And, we have had young students that have come and talked about their experience when, they had someone come in and, just randomly shooting. And it's such a scary thing for not only parents, but even for the kids themselves, and what the trauma they go through after that.
It's traumatizing.
Well.
Yeah, it's a reality that I think we as Americans are very unique in, that we face every day. Like sometimes when I send my kids to school, like I can't help but think, like, what is going to happen? We just don't know. It's so random, the violence that we have in our I wouldn't even say just in our cities, just in living in this country. And so it's something that's really near and dear to me, as a parent, as just a citizen. Like if I'm in a theater, sometimes I'll start looking at the exits just to see, like, God forbid something happen, I need to make sure I'm leaving. We shouldn't have to do that. That shouldn't be part of our everyday calculus.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even before in schools, it was only a fire drill.
Right.
But now it's not only fire drill, right?
Right.
So the kids have to all be trained.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
if there is someone out there,
Right.
know.
Yeah. And there's so many other issues, right, involved in this: mental health, well-being, all of these other issues come in play. But I think for us, it's really like, what is it we can do, at least from the political arm,
Correct.
where we try to decrease forms of gun violence.
Yeah.
And all of those issues come in play in this election. So it's important we go out and vote.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the voting dates. I know you said early voting started today.
Yes.
Yeah, so it starts today until which is
Yeah, and early voting ends on, I believe, Friday, November 1st. And then there's also election day voting that's happening on Tuesday, November 5th. And so I believe the times are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And here in Harris County, at least, and you can vote in any voting precinct, voting polling center across the county today. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So Nabila, walk us through on what or who is going to be on the ballot.
Yeah. It's a long ballot, folks. Be patient when you go in there and complete the ballot. We always say there's a lot of clicking, but you don't have to write anything down, right? It's just clicking and so forth. We are, this particular election cycle, the two big races are, of course, the top of the ticket, the president, right? And here in Texas, for us, it's the Senate, the Texas Senate. So we're going to be choosing who our next senator is going to be. So those are two of the top of the tickets, but that's not where it ends. We always talk about Rise like they kind of get all the airtime. It's kind of more sexy to talk about those two races, but the ones that really affect us, and I would say like 80% of the things that affect us every day. I'm talking about roads, potholes, your schools, your signal light, whether it's working, whether your roads are good, whether you're getting access to clean water. Those don't come in those two top of the ticket races. They come in the down ballot ones. So we always encourage everyone to start at the top. You go all the way down, and you have races such as certain, not in Fort Bend, but I think in certain areas across the state, you actually have some city races on the ballot.
Okay.
But you also have your state rep races, folks that are running for your state House representative or your state Senate. We have a lot of judgeships, statewide judges, as well as your local judge.
Okay.
We have some county election races going on, so your precinct commissioner, and all the way down to like I mentioned, judges, constables. A lot of different races going on. There's even propositions that will be happening that will be unique to your own community. So if you live in Harris County, there'll be Harris County centric. If you live in Fort Bend County, there'll be Fort Bend County. I know, and we have in Fort Bend County, City of Sugar Land has some propositions that they're also putting on the ballot. So there's a lot there. And if you want to know kind of what your ballot will look like, I think you visit your county website. And you can look up your ballot. And so if it's Harris County, do harrisvotes.com. If it's Fort Bend County, it's fortbendvotes.com. But you can just kind of look up and then type in your address, and they'll kind of give you the ballot. And you can kind of take a look at it before you go into the voting booth, so you have an idea of what to expect.
Okay, yeah, that's great information because it's really overwhelming. I'm sure, like when you go in there, and then of course people should and must take their time to kind of understand, right? Like who it's, because it's important who you're voting for, and you not just go.
And what we're finding is a lot of folks will just like, oh, I'm only going to vote the races I know. So that might only be 2 or 3 races, right? And so as those electeds that are kind of on the bottom of the ballot, if you look at the vote number at the end of the election when everything's over, you'll see that their vote numbers are smaller than the top because people are leaving the booth without finishing it. And so we're like, no, look up those races. They're really important. They matter. They affect you. Railroad commissioner, there's other statewide races other than Texas Senate. I mean, these are like races that will really affect us on our everyday lives.
Yeah.
And something that I tell my friends a lot too, I kind of do use an analogy. I say, take the ballot as an exam, like a test that you're taking. Finish all the way through, because if you leave an
right.
if you leave an empty like slot, then they can mark it wrong, right? So take it as if you're taking an exam, and like they'll go all the way down. Like I know Harris County, I think the longest is probably like 36 pages or so. Mine this morning was about 25 pages. But you have to go all the way, and as Nabila has said, a lot of those races at the end of the ballot are like judges, and something.
Your candidates, like who you're voting for, to kind of follow and learn about them. I'm not saying in great detail, but at least know, if you like this certain candidate, why do you like this candidate? Why are you voting for this candidate? And I know many times, as we friends, like when we gather around, we talk about that. We don't get into deep politics, but of course we kind of like say it's important to know who you're voting for, not just go in blindly and just do tick.
Absolutely.
So.
Right. There's a lot of candidate forums happening right now, where they will actually showcase like both candidates for the position. It's a great way to kind of plug in and get to know more. If you can get to them and kind of access them. I know Fort Bend Voters League and a lot of different, kind of nonpartisan organizations will put on these voter forums. So that's a good opportunity to kind of get to know your candidates. You have to talk to them actually and meet with them and ask them questions. I think that's always encouraged. I also realize that the reality of our everyday lives, it's very difficult to kind of just know everything about everything.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
So it's hard to kind of know like about the 100 positions that are running in your thing. So if you have someone knowledgeable, a political friend that you trust, then ask them, hey, who do you recommend? Like I don't have chance to vet every single candidate, but I know I trust you and I look to you. So if you have someone I would oftentimes just give them a call. I'm sure they are plugged in and they will be happy to give you some suggestions.
Yeah, and what do you stand for, right? Like you said, for you it's gun control.
Yes.
It is, so for whatever, like as an individual, what do you stand for? What you looking for?
Exactly.
Right? And then
Exactly.
that way you can learn about those candidates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how can one register to vote or confirm their registration?
Yeah. So October 7th was the last day to register to vote for this election. Not last register to vote forever, just for this election. You have to register to vote.
You can still register now, but it'll be for next year.
You can register now, and you should if you're not. Please register to vote. So for this election, you probably won't be able to vote if you're not registered. But what we oftentimes do is encourage people to just confirm their registration. The state oftentimes does purges of these voter rolls, and we want to make sure that you are registered to vote. So if you want to confirm where you're registered to vote, you can very simply just go to the Secretary of State's website. I would just type in Texas Secretary of State, and then they'll just give you like a portal, and you can put your name and address in, and it'll tell you if you're registered to vote. So that's one way to confirm. If you're not registered to vote, then please you can go to local library, pick up the voter registration form, and it's postage paid. You just fill it out, you drop it in the mailbox, and you'll be registered to vote within, I think, like 30 days or so. So 30 days after the day you sign that voter registration application, you should be registered to vote. So that's kind of a good way to kind of know if you're registered or not.
And also, another important note as well is because if you're also moving, if you're changing your address, if you also move, make sure that you update your voter registration. I know, like, a lot of friends who do move as well. You change your billing, you change your credit card information, you change all this, but people forget to change the voter registration. And so by the time they go to the polls and their addresses don't match their ID, then they're not eligible to vote.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that if you are moving, that you also make sure you register, you change that.
Yeah, because we were talking earlier off air about college students, because that happens pretty often sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I know my niece when she moved to Austin, and her address was different on her ID because it's her home address. So then what happens? What happens?
Have a choice. If they don't change their voter registration, they can do a mail-in ballot, like I mentioned. So there's a different process for that. My daughter, she is coming home from D.C. This weekend, and so we've already made a plan to vote. So we're going to go together as a family and vote on Saturday. She's coming Friday night, and so usually we always get her a mail ballot. but we knew she was coming. We knew early voting would be happening. So we were like, no, let's plan to vote. I've literally put it in my calendar, like 11 a.m. family vote, like we're going. Because I think that's people are busy and you forget, make a plan to vote.
Block out a time.
Block out a time. So I've literally put it on the family calendar that we are going to vote and we are going to go together as a family. And then we're going to take a picture. We're going to post it on this Facebook and say we voted. So we can encourage others to go. But if your college student is for whatever reason the next 2 weeks coming home, that would be a good way for them to vote.
Okay.
Or they could do mail-in ballot. And it would be too late for them at this point to change their registration, like we mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just curious how it is in your household. Like, when your daughter, like, is there a lot of questions she has for you, or how does your discussion go?
Oh, we're a very politically active family. Nobody listens to me. Everybody's got their own. I wish I could be like, y'all are going to vote this way, but everybody has their own opinion, and we have it's a really animated conversation about what's going on.
Right.
And there's a lot going on in the world right now, as y'all can imagine. So there's a lot of heated opinions, and so I certainly try to push my way, but those girls are too sassy, man. They tell me how they're going to vote for, and that is I think I have more sway with my husband than my kids. Yes, yeah. I think I can convince him more than my kids. So yeah, but it's I've always taken my kids are older now, but when they were young, I used to take them with me to the voting booth because I wanted. Like, these are habits, right? Like, these are habits that you put in that, like, when there's an election, you vote. That's just, it's an election. It's time to vote. It's just natural. It's not like something we think about. It's just something we do.
Right.
And we're really blessed, and I think in Houston and places like Fort Bend, where we have county-wide polling. You can go to any polling location in your county. It's very convenient. We have early voting. There's a lot of time. So bring your family with you, especially have young kids, because then it becomes like something that they see, and it becomes something natural. And then when they become 18 and are eligible to vote, they will just naturally know that that's what you do. I mean, it's not even question. It's just what you do. And we know that the voting rates are lowest amongst the youth. And so it's a good habit to instill in our young, because we want to make sure because we're 30, 50 years from now, we're not going to be here. The young people are going to be here.
Correct.
And we want to make sure that they're being heard at the ballot box. But if young people aren't voting, then and if let me tell you, the average, the most highest voter in Texas and across the country is, and I'll be really kind of crude in this, is like white old people. Like, it's just, that's the truth, right? So it's white old people that vote the highest rate. So guess who politicians listen to the most? White old people. Yeah. So if their priorities are going to be the ones that politicians that are guiding politicians, then it's really hard for us to kind of complain when things don't go our way, right? So politicians want to be elected, and they're going to look at who's voting in the voter rolls, and they're going to respond to the people that are going to vote them in, right? And so that's one of the reasons that I feel so privileged to work at Rise and places like this, because what we're trying to do is those people that don't vote historically, those marginalized people, the people that have the least voice, for whatever reason, they're new to this country, they don't know how voting works, they're intimidated, they don't speak the language. We kind of give them guidance and show them, like, look, it's not hard, it's really important, and we give them the reasons that they should vote, and we help them kind of make those calculations, those decisions, and bring them in. So that's young people, that's people that don't speak the language, that's people that have never voted in their life. Maybe they're from countries where democracy wasn't there and voting wasn't normal. So to them, they don't even understand this concept of really voting your elected official in. So that's kind of one reason why we do the work we do, and it's so important that we do the work we do, because their voice is just as valuable as other voices.
Yeah, I remember the time when my dad was alive, and he's very passionate when it comes to politics and voting. So, closer to election time, he would always sit with my mom and kind of educate her and, tell her, like, okay, this is this party, this is what they're standing for, this is that party. And he would, like, keep encouraging her. And even when he had to take his walker down to the, polling location, he would just take her with
Amazing.
him, and he was very, very passionate. So
Yeah.
So like that's, I guess, seeing my dad, we were all like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that.
So
and
you
it-
follow the footsteps, right?
It
You kind of
normalizes it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, and then when I see, when I think about it, if my dad could do it, there should be no excuse for it.
There you
Any of
go.
us.
There you go. If he can go with a walker and
Yeah.
make the effort, then
Yeah.
there really isn't any excuse for any of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were talking about mail-in ballots. What is that? Like, can you explain about the mail-in? And
Yeah.
Who is eligible for that?
Yeah, for the mail-in ballots, so it's a couple of things. You're eligible to vote by mail if you are 65 or older.
Okay.
So that's your automatically. Or you're sick or disabled for there's some reason that you can't make it to the voting booth. Or you are pregnant or expecting to give birth in 3 weeks. So not just if you're pregnant, but like if your due date is within 3 weeks of election day, or you're not going to be in your county, so you're going to be on a business trip, or you're a college student who's not living in the city that you're at, or for whatever reason, you can vote by mail, and even if you are confined in jail, so if you're in jail, you still have a right to vote. So that isn't taken away. So what you do is you register to vote by mail, and you send in an application, and you can download that from your county website.
Okay.
And they will send you a mail ballot. So they'll literally send you like a kind of a big envelope, and you take out like this sheet, and it's kind of a big sheet, and you literally with your pen just check bubble off who your folks are, and then you have to make sure you sign it, and then you send it back in, and it has to reach your county's election office by October 29th.
Okay.
It has to be received, not postmarked. It has to be received. So you got to make sure that you send it in enough time, and then your vote will be valid.
Okay, that's good to know. So how can one find their polling location?
Yeah. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there, like Nabila mentioned, you can also go on the Secretary of State's website. You can also not only check your registration, but you can also check where your polling location will be, and also what's on your ballot. It's actually pretty convenient as well. But you can also go to your county website as well. The elections office always has a clear list as what the early locations are, and then the election day locations are. So like Harris votes and
Fort Bend votes.
Fort Bend votes as well. We'll also have
Okay.
information.
Okay, that's good. And what does one bring to the polls, and what isn't allowed at the polls?
Yeah, this is an important one. We do have to have ID when you go and vote, and so the most easiest one I think would be your driver's license. But that's not always not everybody has a driver's license, right? So you can bring one of I think like 7 or 8 things, and I wrote this down, or I have this list here. There's a personal identification card. Some people can't drive, so they have a Texas personal ID card that works. Your handgun license can work. U.S. military identification that has a photo on it. Your Texas election identification certificate, that is something you can apply for if you don't have a driver's license. Your U.S. passport or your U.S. citizenship certificate, the one with the photo. So those are all acceptable forms of ID, but you do have to have some kind of ID in order to vote.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it's typically like my parents would always take. So when they registered, like every year, I think the county mails this small little card.
Yeah,
It's
I was
like,
going to ask you about
yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah.
I
And
have a card, so you just take that in, or you have to have an ID to get to
you can
that?
take those are acceptable IDs as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you have to have a photo ID,
Yeah,
though.
you also have to have your ID or photo.
Yeah, you can't
But
just take that card.
But
Yeah.
that's like a supplement that you can also bring, and a lot of like my parents always bring that as well.
Yeah. It's actually really nice because that card will tell you exactly what precinct you're in. It'll tell you your
Which
vote,
district,
what
yeah.
district, and then what your voter ID. We all have a voter ID number, and it has like your voter ID number on it. So it's a good thing to kind of keep, but you don't need it to vote though. Like you can bring it in, but you don't need it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. We know, like within, like in the community, also there's language barriers. A lot of people may not speak or read English. So can they bring someone to translate? Is that allowed?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
actually so you can bring someone with you, your family member or volunteer, and bring them to you to the poll. Now that interpreter is going to have to take an oath at the poll, and the poll worker will give that oath, and they'll have to sign something. So that interpreter is not going to be making the choice of vote for you. What they'll simply be doing is translating the ballot for you. But that is completely acceptable and is actually encouraged. We want to make sure that our community members, maybe we have some grandparents or maybe we have some new immigrants that are eligible to vote. We want to make sure that they're voting. And so I would encourage you to help. I remember this is the last election cycle 2 years ago in the midterms. I was at the mosque. Maria Mosque was a polling location. So I was just kind of standing there helping, guiding people. And more than once, someone was like, look, I'm a little scared to go. And I've never voted before. I'm registered to vote, but I'm a little scared. And I was like, look, I will go in with you. And I will not make the voting choice for you, but I will interpret it. I speak, Urdu. I can, talk to them. And so I would take people in with me and kind of just help them translate. It's intimidating. If you've never voted, it's kind of scary, right? It's like this big voting machine. I don't know how it works. I don't know what to do, right? So to have someone who knows and is comfortable with them makes the process a lot more easier, especially for some folks in our community.
Okay. So if they are alone, there will be people out there to assist them in case they don't have someone accompanying them.
Certain locations will have interpreters on site, and they'll also have volunteers outside, and so you can approach them and ask. But typically, it's recommended if you if you have your child or your grandchild. I know my parents would use. I remember growing up, I used to interpret for my parents all the time, and they would go vote. I would tag along. I was 15 years old, and I would just be in the polls. They'd be like, "Who's this kid doing here?" But I'm actually translating things for my parents to vote on the ballot, and so you can do that. And it's easier to just bring someone in your family, but certain locations will have it. I know in Harris County there will be ballots available in Vietnamese.
That's right.
In Spanish.
Okay. Yeah.
So you will have the option to click on the ballot on the machine itself, and it will translate into Vietnamese and Spanish. So.
Yeah. There's if there's a large enough community in that has folks that their first language is not English, then it's like a federal law. They have to do the ballot in those other languages. So Harris County Vietnamese is one of those languages.
Okay, that's great. All right, so let's go on a short break, and when we return, we will continue our conversation with Nabila Mansoor and David from Rise
API. It doesn't matter. API. It's all good.
All right. This is 103.5 Hum FM. Welcome back to Chai Time on 103.5 Hum FM. I am in conversation with Nabila and David, and we've been talking about election 2024 and been gaining a lot of knowledge about voting and, how easy it is actually to vote. It's nothing too complicated, but I'm loving this conversation because it's a wealth of information y'all are sharing with the audience. So let's continue with that. So Nabila, once the vote by mail is sent in, is there a way to track it?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked that. I should have mentioned that earlier. When you do the mail by ballot, you send it in, you can track it, and you probably should just to make sure that you're keeping an eye and that it makes it there on time. It's very simple. You just go to the Secretary of State's website, and they have a mail ballot tracker. And when you send that in, you'll have a number, and you type that in, and you can follow it and make sure it's delivered.
Okay. Now, I know our listeners are, listening to us and audience watching us on live. If they have any questions, can they reach out to y'all?
Yeah. You can go to our website, riseapi.org, and they can reach out to her. I am kind of very oftentimes still take questions, just if folks have any questions that come up. So I'm happy to give my number. So my number is 713-320-1900. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. There are also voter protection hotlines, if you feel like you're going to vote and folks are not, maybe they say that you can't vote and you believe you were registered to vote. There are voter protection hotlines that you can also access, and just give me a second. I'll look that up. I should have written that down. But there are voter protection hotlines. But if you just have a question, I can't find my nearest polling place. I live here. I just don't know where it is. Just give me a call. I'll help you. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out where to go to vote.
Yeah, and then also on our website, riseaapi.org, you can go there. We have a page on there that has a lot of the voting information.
That's right.
All the questions that you may have about where. We also link the tracker for your mail-in ballot, as well as just where to find the polling location. We all linked it on our website, so you can go on there.
Okay, that's perfect. So people with mobility or disability issues, is it easy accessible?
Yeah,
At the polling locations?
Yeah, so so you can actually do curbside voting, and so you can drive up to the polling location, and there should be a button that you can click. It's like a blue handicap logo, and you click on that, and so one of the election workers will come out with the machine and
right.
to your car to vote. So you can pull up there and vote there.
Okay. So what are voter guides and sample ballots? And can you bring them into the voting booth?
Yeah, so you can, and there is vote411.org. That's the League of Women's Voter Guide. It's nonpartisan. It really tells you all the elections that are on the ballot.
Okay.
And we'll give you the candidates, and we'll give you a quick bio of each candidate, so you can kind of, take a look at that and see and kind of build your own ballot, if you will, with that in mind. And you can get your sample ballot by, again, visiting your county website. You'll have to know what precinct you're in, but you can find that out by putting your address in. And they'll give you your sample ballot, and you can print it out and take it with you. I just wanted to mention, you can't take your phone in. So maybe you made notes in your phone, and you were like, okay, this is who I'm going to vote for, and you put in your notes app or something. You cannot take your phone. You can take your phone in, but you can't use your phone to kind of look at what or help you make decisions when you're in the ballot. It has to be on paper. Okay. So a sample ballot is actually a really great way to kind of mark your sample ballot and take it in with you, or write it on a piece of paper, if you want to remember who it is you want to vote for. But just remember, you can't take your phone in.
Okay, that's good to know. So I had a question actually from one of the listeners. The question was, do you have to vote for the party you are registered with?
No, so this is a general election. So I think you vote for your party with your party when it's the primary election during the
Right.
March cycle. So this one is more open, so you can vote for whoever you want. And I know you can vote for Republican, Independent. There's different parties on the ballot that you can choose. So you're not restricted to whichever party that you belong to. And so, yeah, and there's going to be, like, when you approach the ballot this year, you're going to see a lot more candidates. Like, for example, for president, you're going to see different other party candidates other than the typical two that we know. And so you'll be able to see that, and you'll have choices. And certain races too, you also have the choice to write in candidates as well.
A few, sure, yeah.
So there'll be a couple that
Okay.
you'll get the ability to vote whoever you want. And typically, I know friends who voted for a Republican. They also vote for a Democrat. So
Yeah.
it's very very colorful ballot, that I would say. So you're able to do that.
Yeah. The presidential will have a write-in option.
Yeah.
So that's one example of where there is a write-in option is for the presidential. Not every race will have that,
Yeah.
though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good to know, because I know a lot of a lot of people, not only they are all Republicans or they're all Democrats. Some of them do look at the candidate individually, right? So
Yeah.
and they vote accordingly to that. So it's good to know that you don't have to stick to one party. Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about the South Asian community.
Yes.
You've been in this field for a long time and involved in politics and all.
Yeah.
So what is your, how do you look at it when it comes to the South Asian community where voting is concerned?
Yeah.
Are they coming out in large numbers
Yeah.
from the past, or how is that? How are the numbers? Like,
Yeah.
what are the numbers?
Yeah.
showing?
So historically, like, the numbers were lower. But what I will say is that South Asian vote has been growing. It's been growing exponentially. One of the fastest growing racial demographic in terms of our vote increase. So we were around 47%, maybe 2016. It's grown exponentially after that. So 2020, we were, at 67%. I think we're going to see even more increase. For one reason, the candidate at the top of the ticket is actually South Asian,
Yes.
which is very exciting. First time ever in the history of this country. So that has brought up a lot of momentum in the community, and people are excited. People are seeing someone different, someone who looks like them from the places they're from. So all of that. I always say the best way to get out people to vote in your community is to put someone that looks like you on the ballot. That is the best option. And I know Fort Bend, and I know you live in Fort Bend, and I do too. We see that so much because there is such a large and growing community there that now more and more people are putting their names out on the ballot in a way that we never did before. And so, so when you do that, the community gets excited. They come out and vote. I'm expecting that we're going to see record numbers of South Asian voters this time around. And so it should be interesting to see what happens. But there's still a lot of runway for growth in our community.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. We're getting better. I remember back in 2009, 2010, I used to do voter registration drives, like at places like mosques and temples. And there used to be people like who say, I don't believe in voting. Or, you know, like there were so many people who weren't voting. I don't find that anymore. I'll be honest. Like I think a vast majority of the community are now voters. But it's one thing to become a voter, right? Like to be registered to vote and to actually come out and vote. And I still think we have some lag time there. We need some more help in getting those people to come out and actually, you know, put their name on a ballot and actually vote. And so there's still room for improvement. There's still a lot of runway for improvement. And that's one of the things that we're kind of continuing doing is that we got to get out and vote and build power for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, like, you know, we need to have more conversations. I think that's also lacking in our community. When we get together, we talk about everything else, but
Yes.
things that are really important, such as politics, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like once we start talking and we get to learn and gain knowledge, then that changes our perspective on many, many things, many issues. And I feel like sometimes within our South Asian or Asian community that, you know, like getting that conversation going sometimes it's,
Absolutely.
It's quite a challenge.
You know, when my father-in-law, he gets together, he's retired, so he gets together with his friends and they hang out like at these desi, you know, shops and just kind of do gup shop, right? Like they do just talk about the world, talk about politics, talk about everything.
Start with chai first.
Start with chai, absolutely. It's always around chai. It's chai time all the time. and I always say, like, you know, instead of just sitting around and talking, why don't we like find a candidate you like and take that time and have chai, but maybe do some phone banking or text banking, you know, and I wish like our community spent more time doing that and using their resources, writing postcards for, you know, if you're excited about Kamala, write postcards for Kamala, like whatever it is, you know, that would be such a more useful time than and utilizing of our resources in a better way than to just, you know, try to solve all the world's problems over chai. I personally think that would be a better useful time. But you know, it takes time. Our community is still maturing. We've made a lot of gains.
Yes.
We are, you know, I think really understanding the real power that we have if we were to utilize our power in our numbers. Fort Bend County has like almost a quarter Asians and a majority of them are South Asians. And if we can utilize that and really take advantage of that, then it really makes it a better county for not just South Asians, but for everyone, because it's more representative of everyone that lives in there.
Yeah. I mean, like me personally, even I wasn't very involved in, you know, like about politics or, you know, have much knowledge. But I think since we've started doing events at the restaurant at Arling's and having both parties come and, you know, do their campaigning and stuff like that, you get to learn so much about the candidate. You get a one-on-one to talk to them, get to know their views. And it's such a learning experience for me. And it's been a turning point for me too. That now I feel more passionate about it. And I feel like, you know, like each of us can make that difference, you know, and this is one way is by voting.
To become an informed voter is to really become a better citizen of your community, and our community is getting there. I've seen a lot of gains from when I first started, where people didn't even know that you could vote, or, you know, I remember like in 2008 meeting, like being awestruck because I met like, I don't know, the mayor and being like, oh my God, you know, and now, you know, we have relationships with them and we can call them and we just didn't know. We just, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And as the community becomes more mature and understands more, they get involved more. And I think that's better for all of us.
Yeah. So how can one get involved?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways. I know that here at Rise AAPI, we are doing phone banks
And text banking.
and text banking. And so if you want to do voter outreach through phone and text, you can always sign up with us, and we'll be more than happy to plug you in. And it's also a good way to just turn out our community in many ways, because the direct voter outreach is just so valuable, and that they just hear someone, you know, that, like, rather than just seeing something on TV or seeing something through on social media, than just getting that phone call or that voicemail, and there's like, oh, someone actually is reaching out to me and they're wanting to remind me to vote. They want to convince me to vote. Then I think it's a lot more powerful than just like a little piece of paper or just something that they see. So, so definitely phone banking if you're comfortable doing that. We also have text banking if you're not comfortable with speaking to anyone. But also many campaigns are asking for those, if you are comfortable going door to door canvassing, knocking on doors. They're asking for a lot of volunteers. And you know, they need so much help, right? And we talk about the power and numbers that we need to bring, and also it comes down to the volunteers who also contribute and support the candidate. And if the candidate isn't elected into office, you know, it's kind of their way of paying back, you know, for the work that you put into their campaign. And so the more like AAPI volunteers they have, the more they'll probably do something for our community. And so and so that's kind of like my belief as well, in that a lot of these candidates and like they need as much help as they can. So if you are passionate, if you know a candidate that you're going to vote for, that you want to support, you can also plug into their campaign as well, and definitely work and support, because there's so much work from now till the election day that we can do. And not just that, right? And the simplest thing, if you don't want to plug into a campaign right now, you can also just simply text your friends and family, right? You can text 5 friends or family.
Yeah.
Just shoot them a text. It's like, hey, are you going to go vote? And maybe convince them to bring them with you to the polls, right? And that's also another way. Like, have them tag along. Make it something fun. It's like, hey, like, if you're going to go out for some food, then maybe we can stop by this polling location that's down the street, and let's go vote together and make it a fun thing. So like, you can texting, calling for your friends and family is also a very powerful and effective way to get out the vote as well.
Yeah, I wanted to just add, we're doing, with our friends over at Indian American Impact, we're doing an event this Wednesday, October 23rd at Chinese Community Center at 6 p.m. It's an API Voter Protection and Rights Town Hall, and we'll be talking about kind of what to expect at the polls, what our rights are. We'll be talking about translations, all of that. So if anyone's interested in finding out more, please join us as Chinese Community Center this Wednesday at 6 p.m. It's our API Voter Protection and Rights Town Hall.
Okay, and if you have the flyer, just we can share it on our page as well.
I will do that to you right after this. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Great. So before we wrap up, any concluding thoughts? I can't believe an hour has just gone by so fast.
I think concluding thoughts is this is an important election. We want to make sure that your voice is heard, and your vote is your voice. That is the way things work in this country, this democracy, right? And it's a privilege to vote, and we certainly hope that our community will take advantage of that, show up to the polls, and make their voice heard through whatever their position is or who they want to vote for. Please look to us as a resource. We have a lot of resources on our website, riseaapi.org, and we're happy to help people kind of navigate this. It's not easy, but it's also not hard once you kind of tackle it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. David?
Yeah, I know that, like, rather than sitting around and talking at a dinner table about politics and complaining about the issues, the easiest way to take action now is to vote, and it's so easy. Like, it only takes less than 5 minutes in the polling location, and so please get out there and vote. And it's the best way to make a difference. Like, even the smallest difference matters, and it is our power. Like, people don't realize that, and so I hope that people get out there and exercise your right, because it is something that a lot of people fought for, and so we have that privilege. So why not use it? And so please get out there and vote, and yeah.
Yeah, and don't wait for Election Day. It's going to be long lines on Election Day. So we have early voting. This upcoming weekend is the only weekend of early voting.
Okay.
So vote early, and don't wait for Election Day, and bring your friends and family to vote for you with you as well.
Wow, That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I know, your organization does a lot of work, and we would love you all to join us again to talk about the work that you all
Absolutely.
do. This is just the beginning. And
Absolutely.
we really appreciate both your time and coming here to Chai Time. Thank you, listeners, for joining us here on Chai Time. We shall see you next week, same time, same place. Signing off, Chai Time, 103.5 Hum FM.